we have a nice question here from Mike G, and this is more of a kind of a, I guess, our take on what happened here. So, what lessons can be learned from the collapse of Terra? Did Terra's collapse identify potential weakness of algorithmic stablecoins? How do we ensure SIG does not run the same risk of, well, he has the same risk. That's what Mike is saying. And so I guess I'll give my take on this, and then you guys can put in your, also join in. So, well, one thing to really remember about Terra is that it was under collateralized. In fact, I think it was pretty highly under collateralized. That's why they kept having to pump new collateral into it, and steady lads and deploying more Bitcoin steady lads sort of way. That's because we didn't deploy enough Bitcoin to collateralize it in the first place. So we had to keep telling lads to be steady and deploy more Bitcoin. So that's one of the things that has happened that is basically different here. It's also about the way, basically the design of the stablecoin itself, the protocol that's being used. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on this, Joe?
Well, the first thing that I would like to point out here is that Terra had backing by big players in the space, and the result of that is they had a lot of media access that are basically willing to sell ice in a snowstorm. Even if it makes really no sense. So there was not a lot of critical thinking, maximum marketing, and maximum adoption, right? And to some degree, I think that's a complete failure on the due diligence side of the crypto media outlets and the exchanges that were willing to support something that was not designed very well, right? But that really wasn't the intent or point there in terms of making sure that the system itself made sense. The point was to sell, right? And they did a good job at selling. It got up to what, $40 billion at one point. And then, suddenly the framework itself failed after there had been repeated warnings. Hey, this probably doesn't make sense. Hey, this can be attacked. Hey, we have an issue. But, that really is not a very good sales pitch. Think about how can these things fail, it's much more attractive to sell things and say, how can you make money, right? So I think it's a failure in terms of the thought process that people need to go through when objectively looking at these type of designs, because, it was painful. I remember we actually had the ability to list a USD, or it was UST pair, and in the discussion with Alex, it took us about 5 minutes to say, hey, let's stay away from this. This seems like a terrible idea. And so we avoided that listing pair. And, the other aspect that's kind of critical here is the amount of counterparty risk that occurs off chain, right? So I lend to Dan, at 5% return, and then he lends to Alex at 6% return, and we create some sort of scheme off chain that nobody sees or understands, and then when it blows up, the counterparty risk is taking out a lot of major players in the space, which I think
that's called the Ponzi scheme.
Yeah,
the Ponzi scheme.
Where is the due diligence? Like, where is the transparency? Where is the intelligence here? Because I think that a lot of that was missing. Now, SIG the assumptions of failure are relatively transparent, clear. You do have a little bit of game theory that has to kind of change the assumptions you need to make in terms of failure, but it's clear, it's on chain, it's transparent. There's no hidden counterparties and risk off chain that you're not aware of. And it's all open source. It's all there. A lot of the reward mechanisms that were occurring in Terra were the result of kind of off-chain, lending and manipulation. So it was a shitty design. And what happens? It didn't stand the test of time. It blew up. It hurt a lot of people, which is unfortunate. But I think we need to place a lot of the blame on the people who sold this shit rather than, just say all algorithmic stablecoins are bad.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is kind of a common theme, right? So one big one failed. Let's look at all of them and kind of discount them right away. And it's actually we actually had to do Coty actually had to do a bit of a some reaching out and explaining about Jed and why Jed is really not the same as Terra, because everybody just started painting all these algorithmic stablecoins with the same brush. And again, as Joe said, these the way it is built from the ground up is totally different, right? There's more transparency. There's more attention to detail, like, for example, collateralization. And it's technology first. It's not marketing first. And again, as Joe pointed out, the reason why it blew up so much, blew up and then dumped so much, was because not enough attention was given to the actual the actual composition of the ecosystem versus the size of the ecosystem. They were basically trying to grow out as much as possible inorganically without really thinking about risks. So it was reckless, and that's what happened. And look, if you're reckless, you can crash and destroy pretty much any crypto, okay? Unless it's so decentralized that there's just no way you can do it. But even then, you get enough people together, you can have the most beautiful blockchain ecosystem out there, and if enough people act recklessly at the same time doing the same thing, you will seriously hurt that ecosystem. So it's really about just really about the ecosystem as well here. It's really, that's why ecosystems are so important. That's why, for example, in Ergo, I'm really proud of our ecosystem. I'm really proud of our community, because we don't have that reckless element in our community. A lot of our community is building things out, research first, technology first. Alex, that's how Alex has worked as long as I've known him, and I've known Alex for, well, I think, what is it, 6 years now, right, Alex?
Yeah, exactly.
Buddy, what's your take out on the stablecoin drama?
My take.
Yeah.
Oh, let's then finish maybe. Then
sorry.
you finished?
Well, I'm finished. I'm finished. Please go ahead, Alex.
All right. So actually, a lot of lessons to be learned from the Terraclism, and some of them are already ignored, by the way. The most terrible event around the Terraclism was that the blockchain was halted at some point. And that's actually a problem with application proof of stake blockchains, right? So if you have some application on top, and tokenomics is dependent on an application, right? So in case of Terra, we had supply going to the sky, right? But that's actually how the stablecoin was designed. And Terra holders halted the blockchain, right, to stop supply inflation. That's the truly terrible event, right? So if blockchain is stopped, unfortunately, we've seen a lot of stopped and restarted blockchain events in 2021, right? 2022 also. But that doesn't make any sense, right? So this is the huge red flag. It's like the complete disaster, right? for a chain. It should be. But yeah, it seems some of chains successfully continuing to fool the so-called investors after being restarted. All right, so then yeah, I agree with Dan. So yeah, there should be natural growth. So on the website, Terra was labeled as money for the internet or something like that, right? Like they're trying to serve some real economy, digital one, right? But in reality, so before the crash, 80% of UST was locked in the Anchor protocol, providing 20% APY. Right. So and then yeah. So the crash started with, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, with some whale or few whales exiting from the Anchor and yeah, crashing the pack. Then yeah, the public followed. Sorry?
Yeah, there was they were transferring between staking pools, and then when the transfer occurred, somebody dumped something like 80 million, and that's what caused it to depeg.
All right, yeah, and then the panic did well complete depegging, right, and then yeah, in inflation of Terra supply, and then blockchain being halted as a well final disaster to happen. So yeah, it seems then the purpose of that stable coin was mostly about being locked in a protocol which was designed well specifically to lock this UST stable coin, right? And provide 20% APY. So yeah, I mean very unnatural economy, let's say simulation of economy. And yeah, so there were also problems with instruments, right? So yeah, Luna, right? And so yeah, the stable coin and Seigneurage shares counterparts, and yeah, also yeah, it seems so well they had a hope maybe for using exogenous reserves, right? But that's also very centralized, and yeah, definitely not a good solution to preserve stability with exogenous reserves. So yeah, in regards with all those aspects, SIG-USD and yeah, jet design in general are very different.
Yeah, I think that kind of sums it up. You know, I mean, we could elaborate on it more, but that's pretty much where it is. You know, those are the core differences, and these are the things that make a world of difference. You know, whenever you have to stop, you know, to me, stopping a blockchain is kind of like saying the world just stop turning. It just reminds me of that. You know, it's like, okay, world, we're gonna stop turning, we're gonna fix a bunch of stuff, and then you can start again. It's kind of the same thing, you know. Well, to me at least, it just seems so ridiculous to if you have supposedly decentralized blockchain. You know, of course, if you have some federated or some centralized network, then yeah, okay, that's understandable. But a decentralized blockchain, really, that decentralized, you're just gonna shut it down. You're just gonna stop. Okay. I hope you know what you're doing. Obviously, they didn't.